It feels like so long ago that we were able to sit around and properly watch NFL players play football. Hello and welcome to the Irish NFL show as we are reacting to the first weekend of preseason action. And yes, I know it is only preseason, but it's still plenty to sink our teeth into. Delighted to be joined by Brian O'Leary, Kieran Boyle, and Kieran O'Donovan as we spin through a couple of the main talking points of tonight. I'd like to remind everybody that the Irish NFL show comes to you in association with QuimBet, and our season previews have already begun. If you look in your podcast feeds now, our preview of the AFC West and all four teams in there will be available, and you can see the NFC West coming later this week. And we are recording our previews to the NFC and AFC South. So if you have any questions or any hot takes you want to let us know about any of those 8 teams, please get in touch with us on our Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you get us on social media. All right, guys, let's get into it. Kieran, I'm going to start with you because I know you had the chance to actually see some NFL players play football in the flesh. You were down in Duval County watching the Jags play against the Steelers. Some pretty incredible things coming out of it. Not so much noise about Travis Hunter, but a lot of noise about the fact you saw a 70-yard field goal being hit over the skies of Florida.
Yeah, and up in the press box, it's usually pretty chill and pretty quiet. But once that went over, and I was sitting in front of all the Jag scouts, and they all jumped up and down, and they loved that. I think it would have cleared 72. I think it was unofficial 71, but still, phenomenal effort. And that's the kind of stuff that can really galvanize a team in a kind of not a dreary preseason game, but a game that players are trying their utmost not to get hurt in. It's fun to be back, like you said. Live football, fans just eager to get back out there, just savor the tailgating, just be out there in the seats. It was brutally hot, so a lot of people were taking shade in the concourse until the game kicked off. Huge amount of Steelers fans, obviously, terrible towels everywhere, but it was great to get out there, just walk around and soak in a football game for the first time since New Orleans, and just get out there and just interact with some of the local press and get their opinions on what's going on. Get to the locker room, chat to a few players and coaches. But yeah, it was great. Get out there. Obviously, the starters weren't out there very long. I was watching Travis Hunter playing cornerback. He started off on offense and dropped back into the defense for a while. So I was watching him eagle-eyed, see how he did. But again, it's a preseason. No one's doing anything crazy. No one's showing off any schemes or any crazy stunts. So it's I don't want to say pedestrian because it's football and it's still smash mouth, but it was pretty I won't call it chill, but it was kind of laid back compared to what we're going to get next month. But I saw some touchdowns, but it's a good time. Good to get out as always.
Yeah, relaxing day in the Sunshine State, I guess, is good for the heart. I'm interested though in what you've heard from the Jags media when it comes to what we can expect from Travis Hunter. Are they starting to get any inclination as to whether he's more wide receiver or cornerback, or is it still too early to tell?
It's still early. I mean, a lot of just talking to people that are there at training camp day in day out, and it's he's doing a lot of work on defense because he's got to kind of put that part into his repertoire on top of what he does on offense. He's been named in the unofficial kind of depth chart as wide receiver 1. So he's going to have to do some work on defense and keep everybody guessing. And he's going to have to keep the coaches on both sides engaged and make sure that he's used as much as he can. And we'll see where the Jags season goes. We'll talk about them a little bit more on Thursday. But it was interesting to see Trevor too kind of go through his progressions. We've talked in the past and we'll talk again about a huge year coming up for him. But again, preseason games, players are just trying to get through without getting hurt. That's the name of the game. And a lot of the starters obviously came out kind of early or midway through the first quarter, end of this first quarter. And then, by quarter 4, you're looking at, fourth stringers and practice squad guys. But Travis Hunter obviously was, a lot of Travis Hunter jerseys, a lot of love, a lot of hype for him. So we'll see how it pans out.
I guess interesting when I start off the conversation about the kickers, of course, from the Irish point of view, that the kickers are really making a big splash, Kieran. You were watching as the Packers are playing, and Mark McNamee, the Dubliner, the Ballybones Adenda's footballer, managed to hit a couple of kickoffs. One of 3 Irish kickers who were in action this weekend, which is an incredible thing to say. I found it funny. I think I saw somewhere on Twitter that somebody put up a map of all of the Green Bay Packers players and their places of birth, and it's spread all along like the Midwest and the Deep South. And then there's 2 little spots in Leinster, because of course Daniel Whelan from Wicklow is on the squad as well. Really great story for him. what we can expect in terms of his actual participation in the season is a different thing. But great opportunity he seems to take it, considering that he only arrived because he was waiting for a visa or something like that. He only arrived in the States the night before the game, which is an incredible turnaround.
Yeah, listening again to Matt Lafleur after the game, he was very complimentary of Mark, and he said, exactly as you said, Mark McNamee arrived in Green Bay at about 11 p.m. the night before the game, and he put him out. He was on, he took care of 2 kickoffs. He was on the kickoffs. He didn't have any field goal attempts or extra point attempts, but went about his business, and Matt Lafleur was really pleased. I mean, it's such a huge occasion for the likes of Mark McNamee. I mean, this time last year, he was Ballyboden St. Enda's goalkeeper. You know, he's a Gaelic a club footballer here in Ireland, and it's really something that is starting to snowball slightly. I mean, now you've got 3 guys in the NFL that have come through the international player pathway, and you have 2 guys from the leader kicking program, again, which must be establishing itself as a reputable path for these players to get to the NFL. So as you mentioned, Mark McNamee, he goes about his business very well. Charlie Smith was 2 from 2, a field goal, and 50-yard field goal, which is nothing to be sneezed at for the Saints, and hits his extra point. Jude McTominay, again, another guy who kind of took a different route to the guys, came through the college system after putting himself out there through an Australian kicking program, Pro Kick Australia. But again, another guy who's taken the long road to the NFL, nails a 42-yarder and kicks his extra point. So, look, I want to kind of touch slightly and very briefly on 2 aspects of this. I suppose the first thing is, I don't think this is a coincidence, the fact that these Gaelic footballers, and in a lot of cases goalkeepers, are now starting to trickle into the NFL, because kicking for goalkeepers in particular in Gaelic football has become such a pinpoint skill and such an important skill in the game. Look, I know I have a brother here who's a goalkeeper for a junior football team, and I see the reps he's taking in training, and the amount of practice, the amount of time that goes in.
Nothing more important than junior B, Kieran. We all know that.
Sorry, no, we've been Premier Junior. We're Junior A at the moment, but I'm absolutely insulted at that. But no, but look, even at these levels, you can see that the quality of kicking from the goalkeepers is improving. It's not just a case of lump it as far as you can anymore. And so, like, I think you can go way back, and I'm not trying to make this a Gaelic football show, but go back to Stephen Cluxton and how he made the kicking game so important in Gaelic football. It's really evolved over the last 5 to 10 years. Okay, so now we're seeing goalkeepers with these transferable skills that really can transfer to the sport of American football. Okay, couple that with the likes of leader kicking and giving them this pathway, and you really can say to these young kickers all over the country, there is it's not just a pipe dream to think that you can actually make it in this league, because we produce these players here in Ireland with this very transferable skill, and it's becoming increasingly possible for these guys to get to the States. Then when they get there, the next trick is, what can they do to stay around? All right, sorry.
Yeah, no, I think that's a big point of it. Obviously, it's great to see 3 guys sort of continue to get reps and stuff like this. But I guess the longer that the preseason goes on, the more people are going to try and find ways to get on the squad. As is the case for a lot of different positions, of course, not just with the Irish guys. I was watching the Packers-Jets game because naturally I'm just interested in watching the Jets for some reason. Even though I'm not a fan, I just have to sort of tune in to try and see what the Jets media are eventually going to be hyping about. And sure enough, they were very positive on their own defensive performances. But it's just amazing. Was there a muffed punt or something about the Packers by a player who was undrafted coming out of the University of Florida? You're like, Jesus, that's the rough and tumble, the cruelty of this time of year. And Brian, we'll talk about Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart later on, because those are the 2 big ticket items that everyone's been sort of tuning into so far. But like
champing at the bit, waiting to see a bit of coverage and a bit of action from these guys since draft night last April.
Yeah, but that's I was in like, when you're looking at a weekend like we had, and there was a lot of standalone games. Is there any like who stands out? Is it possible to stand out? Is it important to stand out? How much does it really matter for rookies to make their mark this early?
I don't want to dampen the mood too much, Shane, because I am very excited the fact that we're very close to an NFL season. We're a couple of weeks away, and it's great to be back with you guys. And obviously, we haven't done a lot of live content, but we've been here before with overreaction Monday on the first weekend of the season. I feel like we're getting to overreaction of pre-season games. Shedeur Sanders has a lot of reaction to his game on Friday. Jackson Dart plays well on Saturday, but again, is it an overreaction, or is it the expectations of what we saw? I think you're always going to find these kind of unique players who come out of nowhere. Like there was so many fantastic kind of special teams plays at the weekend. I think I throw a lot of kudos maybe to your running back Shane Henderson, who had the fantastic touchdown. I know there's a lot of hype with him, and when the Patriots selected him in the draft, everyone was kind of raving about the fact that they may have found a bell cow running back. But there's a lot of standout special teams plays. I think it's too early, over the course of one weekend in particular, to kind of start identifying players. I think if we find over the course of the next few weeks, we see the same player consistently doing it in pre-season. But then you have to weigh up what are we seeing in the second half of these games, because I did try to tune into a number of games over the weekend, and I love Kieran's analogy on this because as in US Kieran, because you do get some starters, and then by the second half, you're seeing players just trying to make rosters and trying to make those cuts and giving themselves the opportunity to be around by the week 3 of the camps, allowing for that, final chance to make a team, or do enough on content-wise to have some other team potentially to pick them up.
Yeah, but that, momentum still counts for something. And I don't know, maybe I'm just an idiot. I'm just trying to believe
You're giddy because it's back, Shane. I get it. Oh,
no, I stayed up to watch I saw the first half of the Patriots game on Friday night. I needed to try to excuse the fact that I stayed up so late to watch Trayvon Henderson pull out this fantastic play. I was like, yes, it's back. But I mean, when we talk about Shedeur Sanders, and I throw this over to you, Kieran, as somebody who probably has a greater sense as to what he was in college and greater sense as to why he fell down the draft. It's so interesting listening to the coverage now, because if you are a fan of Shedeur, you have a reason now, or at least in some small modicum, to say, okay, this is what we can do. Look at the 2 touchdown passes he had against the Carolina Panthers. Look at what he can do, yada, 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 yada. But yet, if you're not a believer in him, you can look at the fact that I think he was left scrambling. He ran 30 yards behind the yard of scrimmage. It was on a 4th and 1. There was a lot of sort of mediocre plays. Again, there's not so much we can really read into this. But in terms of what you saw for Shedeur, I'm sure, I know you were watching some of that game when the Browns played against the Panthers on Friday night. Is the Cleveland quarterback conversation actually changing here? Because if you listen to some of the talk radio over in America, some people are like, okay, he's given Kevin Stefanski, etc., a real headache. Some people are like, they should really be starting at the start, and some people are just like, come on, it's a second-string Carolina Panthers team. Where should we really be sitting on this?
Well, I don't think anybody can really doubt his ability and his skill to play the position. I mean, that's the first thing we got to talk about. He's a very talented football player. The flip side of that is all the other stuff that comes with it, and we talked about it a lot in the spring and the draft and coming up to practice and mini camps. That it's the attitude, it's all the other stuff that goes along with it. I mean, he's given. He was coming in with all the flashy stuff before the game started. Nike had an ad, I think it went out on social media with him kind of putting the watch stuff up, which again, it rubs a lot of people up the wrong way. Then he starts getting into it with a reporter after the game. These are things that don't exactly, enamor people towards you. Again, he's a very talented football player, but all the NFL, they want talent out there. They want top play all the time. They don't really care about all the other extra stuff. And if he's bringing a lot of the extra stuff, I mean, we know what Stefanski's like. He'll go with steady, consistent, and it's a lot. It's really too early now to start talking about Sanders muscling his way up the depth chart, because it's still for my money, it's still Joe Flacco's team. I mean, there's talk about Dylan Gabriel injury today as well. So he may, by default, end up staying on the roster. But, I mean, like you said earlier, for Sanders loyalists, it was a perfect kind of, thumb of the nose to the critics, and to people who don't particularly like the way he carries himself. It was kind of a justification as to why he carries himself that way. So I don't think yes, there was a lot of flash, primarily because it was the only game on at the time. So he got all the eyes. But that's preseason football. Everyone is so desperate to watch football. Everyone's so desperate for real live football instead of talking about it for months and months. So he was always going to get the eyes. He was always going to get the column inches. But I don't think a huge amount has changed, especially not in Stefanski's eyes. at this time of year, because I mean, that game was the first week of August. There's still a lot of training camp to go. And if you think these guys have been practicing since probably the third week of July in camps, or second week of July. They talk about the dog days of baseball, dog days of summer in baseball. This is the dog days for the NFL, because the kind of shine has worn off the joy of coming back, and now it's a slog. Now it's repetitive. It's meeting rooms. It's nonstop. It's playbook. So for me, the Sanders stuff, it was good to see, but I wouldn't read too much into it just yet. Like a lot of the hype that goes on with preseason.
Yeah, I'm going to open the floor on Shedeur to Kieran and Brian, because I think it is a fair point to make that obviously we shouldn't really be overreacting in that, trying to sort of draw out what the quarterback depth chart looks like in Cleveland. I think Dylan Gabriel wasn't available to play in that game, and people are always trying to really want to see his transition from that Oregon program. But it's also worth saying that whilst you can't win your job at the first game of preseason, you probably could lose it, and particularly in Shedeur's case, because of so much media attention. If he completely flopped and failed and threw 2 interceptions instead of 2 touchdowns, the conversation we're having today is very different. I don't know which one of you wants to hop on that one.
Kieran, I'll jump in if that's okay.
Yeah.
I think over the course of the last few months, there's been a conversation that the Browns are in a win-win situation here, because a lot of people, to Kieran's point and you were saying, that felt that he is a bona fide first round player that was never selected in the first round or second round. And we all know, inevitably, over the course of the last 3 months, what's transpired is all the nuggets of information that came out about how he didn't prepare himself properly for meetings with teams, how he got second bites of the cherry, Giants in particular, and Brian Dable was left frustrated that he didn't catch on to the change in which Dable made to the playbook, and essentially just said he was unprepared for these meetings. So the Browns, and I think we spoke about it at the time, it was a little bit of a gift for the Browns. It was a bit of I wouldn't say it was a no-brainer, but they can take a chance on him. And if he doesn't, do enough in camp, they can cut him. I know it'll be major news, but he's still a 5th-round selection. They're not locked into any major contracts. They do have another rookie on the books. I think Kenny Pickett and everybody's kind of looks like, to me, will be the odd man out there. And to Kieran's point, they've got that solidification in Joe Flacco, who knows the dynamics of what Stefanski wants offensively. He's been there before. He was the savior that season. They got in the playoffs. Obviously, it fell short in that wildcard game. But he's done himself no harm over the course of the last few weeks, even in some of the stuff we've seen in the camp so far. So I imagine he will make the roster. One other quick point I wanted to make. It was noticeable this weekend. I don't know what this is an equation around how teams start very slowly over the course of the first few weeks of the season. How many teams played a lot more starters immediately at the weekend, as opposed to what we've seen in the past, where they just rest them completely, go into the season quite cold, and either the offense has a head start or defense. We saw week 1 when the Patriots beat the Bengals. I don't think if we were to play that game week 6, week 7, that would be the case. But it's interesting. I think some teams are kind of changing their strategy, how they're approaching these games. But obviously they want to get these guys out as quickly as possible, because you're always worried that there's a risk of an injury coming quickly down the line. So I just thought that was worth pointing out, that we've seen a change in dynamics. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, Brian. There seemed to be a kind of a consistent pattern from the games that I saw of 2 drives. They seemed to just put the starters out for 2 drives, and then they were done. Which, I guess it gives them a chance, as you said, to see them early. And the other thing as well is, you could put out rookie receivers veteran receivers with rookie quarterbacks, or mix and match, and it mightn't do the guys who are looking to impress any justice or any service. I mean, if you put a rookie quarterback behind a terrible O-line, or a starting quarterback behind a rookie O-line, if you mix it up, it's not really it's not conducive to, I suppose, giving your guys the confidence that they need. But it can have 2 effects, and I saw a stark contrast. You saw Joe Burrow go down the field. He was almost perfect. I think he missed 1 throw. Burrow connecting with Chase, and it was just exactly what you'd expect and exactly what you'd hope for. And you could be very excited as a Bengals fan to say, okay, it's looking like business as usual. Conversely, as a Packers fan, I saw Jordan Love go down, and he was 1 for 5. He absolutely could achieve. He achieved nothing, and that was with his starters. And I get the whole, exactly what Kieran is saying. It's preseason. We're not going to lose too much sleep over it or anything like that. But if you're only getting 2 drives, the thing is, you don't get any time to make up for it. And Matt LaFleur was on record. He was asked, because of it went so badly after the game, would that change his planning in terms of, could these starters see the field again? Will he give them another 2 drives the next day out? And he said probably not. So I mean, that might be the last you'll see of them until week 1, and it doesn't leave Packers fans with a huge amount to be confident about. And you had a couple, like in the preseason as well. You're not looking for team performances, or you're not expecting results. You're not, you can't. There's too many variables, but you are looking for moments, and you're looking for, I suppose, moments. As Shane said, you're not necessarily going to win a job, but you could very much lose one. Mecole Hardman had an absolute disaster for the Packers, from what I saw. Conversely, Abdul Carter for the Giants was awesome. He was absolutely awesome for I think it was 6 snaps he played, and he got pressures on. I think, I don't know, was it 5 out of 6, or he generated more pressure. He generated more pressure himself than the Packers D-line in total. So he was you're just looking for these, these little moments, or these little high points, because as I said, we're clutching at straws for talking points as well in the preseason. So I guess we have to talk about something.
Well, I mean, it is still football being played in helmets and pads, and there has to be something we can learn from some of this. And I'm interested to hear the guys' thoughts on Jackson Dart's performance. Of course, as the Giants played against the Buffalo Bills, but that's coming after this quick break.
This is Ireland, rugged, wild, and endlessly captivating. A land shaped by history, where ancient castles whisper stories of the past, where world-class links golf connects you to breathtaking landscapes, and where centuries of craftsmanship and culture are blended to produce world-class whiskies, savoured as music and laughter fill the air. Adventure calls from every corner, and tradition pours from every dram. Step into landscapes that take your breath away, and moments that stay with you forever. From vibrant cities full of life to warm welcomes shared with friends old and new. Golf and whiskey are just some of the ways we connect you to Ireland's culture, craft and soul. But every journey with us is about people, place and authentic experiences you'll never forget. This is more than a trip. It's the Dunes and Drams experience. Discover Ireland with us and make memories that will last a lifetime.
Well, we couldn't have a Monday night show without Connor's dulcet tones as he reads out that script for Dunes and Drams, who of course our travel partner. We move on now to talk about that performance in the New York Giants, because I think when it comes to rookie quarterback watch, Jackson Dart's performance, Brian, was probably one of the ones that stood out more. He was 12 of 19 for 154 yards, thrown for a touchdown against the Buffalo Bills. And I think I've heard a couple of people make the point that unlike some of the defenses that a lot of rookie quarterbacks face, that there were a greater cohort of starters that the Bills playing. I'm not saying it's the same as playing a Bills defense in November, for example, but certainly, is it shaking up the pecking order? No, but certainly a lot to like.
Yeah, I think what was striking for me was his composure over the course of the drives in which he was in the game, and even the touchdown pass where it looked like he was on the hook for a sack and he found a way to escape, and then he chose a really accurate touchdown to Humphries. I think he's come as advertised, and again, anybody who's been really focusing on the Giants camp has heard continuous positive stuff about how he's striking up a great relationship with Dable, with the team, and where he's understanding the nature, and he started off slowly. I thought one of the interesting points he made about the game, and even last week in camp, was things are slowing down from him. Since he means he's getting up to speed, what's expected of the NFL. He made the point out to the game that what's really striking for him is the safeties and how quickly the safeties can adapt in the NFL compared to the college game. But it's everything I suppose it's everything we thought. I wasn't surprised by what we saw on Saturday, but again, I've been cautious because we have been here before with other rookie quarterbacks, and they play lights out in preseason. I think the clamour will quickly come for Dart if the Giants don't have a successful start to the season. I think it'll be a ballsy move for Dable to put him in at some stage, even with the desire and the ambition for him, because ultimately it is his quarterback. He went out, he was the one that wanted him. Joe Shane obviously backed him, but it'd be interesting because again, if the flip side of that is that everyone's really positive about Russell Wilson right now, and Russell Wilson is always very positive this time of year, but ultimately is he going to be playing really well for the Giants to keep Dart off the field? The Dart is off the field, the Giants are having a successful season, so it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation for me and Kieran. We want to see Dart, but we want to see the Giants win. We're starved of victories and we're starved of good seasons.
Yeah, Kieran, what's your take on how the Giants played? It's interesting to see that all four quarterbacks managed to get on the field, three of them throwing touchdowns. But of course, it's not about just the quarterbacks. What did you make of the Giants against the Bills?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, I wanted to watch Dart and see how he adapted to the program. There was a game he played against Mississippi State. They call it the Egg Bowl towards the end of the season, and it was very similar to that. It was a lot of scrambling, a lot of quick kind of passes, and that's kind of what it reminded me of. I mean, he had a solid game. I mean, 12 and 19, nice touchdown throw, and he played within himself. He kept it nice and chill, and he did what he had to do. He didn't get injured. He didn't do anything crazy. And like Brian said, the ideal situation for Giants fans is that he sits on the bench, learns the game, and we don't see him for the rest of the season. That means we're pretty much in contention in some way or another. But I'm enthusiastic about it. I'm excited. It's another Ole Miss link from Charlie Connolly back in the day to Eli to Jackson Dart. There's a whole line there that I'm as an SEC fan, I'm excited to see another SEC quarterback with the Giants. So all good things. I mean, it's again, it was a kind of a primetime game on at 1:00, so it was good to see. I caught the end of it as I got to the Jag Stadium, so it was nice to see the scoreline. But encouraging. Played within himself, didn't get injured, and it was good. Good.
Well, you were talking about the fact that Dart's main job was to not get injured. Of course, one quarterback that did end up getting injured was Anthony Richardson as the Colts played on Thursday night against the Baltimore Ravens. It was really interesting when he ended up with a dislocated pinky. I don't recommend anybody looking up pictures of it if you're of some sort of nervous disposition. But the actual play itself was incredible in that he was playing and he was so laser focused into looking in one direction that he completely missed the guy. Who was David Ojabo coming in for the sack and hit him hard, and it seemed like he didn't even look in his general direction. And the conversation now is coming around, Kieran Donovan, as to firstly, is he ever going to come? Is he going to come back? He's day to day at the moment. Does this affect whether him or Daniel Jones is going to be the starting quarterback when the season begins? And also, Anthony Richardson, as is often the case, is being questioned as to his general awareness during game time, because he's often found himself in a situation where an avoidable injury happens because he's just not watching what's happening.
Yeah, and I think the second point you made is the more concerning one. I think the dislocated finger looked a lot worse than it will turn out to be. It's not going to keep him out for too long. I think he's back practicing already. But that's exactly right. The lack of awareness in taking the hit is probably what would strike a lot more than the injury itself. And look, his durability is just coming into question. His durability, his character has already been brought into question, and I don't see any other outcome than Daniel Jones being the starter of the Colts, and whether the lads as Giants fans, they can tell you whether that's how good or how bad a prospect that is. I'm sure. I reckon it's probably the latter. But Daniel Jones played as well. He had a mixed game, some really good things and some really questionable moments as well. So yeah, I think you're going to see Daniel Jones as the starter. And if you start seeing one of these mixed match quarterback controversies with two mediocre quarterbacks, it's just not going to be it's not going to bode well for the Colts this season.
For the benefit of the tape, Brian was smirking during that conversation. Go on, Brian. Daniel Jones, somebody else's problem now?
Well, it is someone else's problem, thankfully. Sorry, that's a bit harsh, but Giants fans don't wish any ill feeling toward Daniel Jones. It's like it comes to a time where you have to move on. I think Giants fans are quite relieved that we're not talking about Daniel Jones this offseason going into a new season where people are suggesting he's going to turn things around, because inevitably it never worked out. But I do think there's better days ahead for him in Indianapolis, and I think it's back to the point we made a few months ago, is that the expectation, rightly or wrongly, in Indianapolis compared to New York is very different, and I think the division itself is very different. I think there's an opportunity within that division to have a good season. Like, the division is so tight. Let's remove, with all due respect, the Titans out of the equation here. You're talking about the Jags, you're talking about the Texans, and the Colts, and these teams have a tendency to knock each other off throughout the course of the season, on the road, home games that just don't make any sense. I could see a scenario where the Colts are in the offing for the division come December, but ultimately you trust Daniel Jones to get the job done. I think Jones will have some ups and downs over the course of the season. I do believe he'll be the number one quarterback. I don't think you bring a quarterback in at $70 million a year to have him sit on the bench either. Let's bear that in mind. That's the contract he got, 1 year, $70 million, prove it deal. He's got a lot to prove, but I think he's in a good spot where he could actually find himself having a reasonably successful season. But the expectations for him are a lot less than what they were in New York.
A quick one, Kieran O'Donovan. It's funny when it comes to injuries. The Matt Stafford watch continues. Supposedly he's on street clothes today, even though people were expecting him to be training, panic buttons in Los Angeles, because the longer this Matt Stafford thing goes on where he's not training and not playing on the field, I think it really affects the way that we look at the LA Rams, as we were talking about last week when we were, we'll be talking about when our NFC previews come out.
Yeah, and I guess we're just going to be wondering until week 1. I think that's the way it's going to be, because he's a 37-year-old quarterback. I mean, if he was in his second, third season, okay, we'd be panicking if we weren't seeing him by now. But they're going to err on the side of caution, no matter how good or bad he's recovering. So again, as a Rams fan, I don't think I'd be panicking too much yet. However, as the weeks go on, you'll be wondering. You're just wondering, and you're hoping. Again, we've said it in our last few shows. We've all been really high on the Rams, and it's going to be a different looking Rams team if we don't see Matt Stafford on the field. And just to circle back to a point that I was going to make, when you see these different situations with quarterbacks maybe underperforming or questions coming up, and you see players going down, which inevitably will happen. This preseason is the only window that some quarterbacks get to put some things on tape. And one guy that has raised a few eyebrows. And look, I know he had a mediocre game against the Saints, but in the Hall of Fame game, we saw a lot of good things from Trey Lance, a guy who's probably been written off by a lot of people around the league. And look, I mean, he was a high draft pick. I can't, Kieran, you can tell me how high he was picked. He was definitely first round pick, third. Okay. And he's been through a couple of systems, and we saw how long it took Sam Darnold to find his feet in Minnesota. I think if you do see the Rams have to give up on Matt Stafford at some point, they're going to have to eye up and have to look around the league to see where's the best quality available to us. Maybe the likes of the Colts, maybe someone else goes to restock. The likes of Trey Lance. This is a really narrow window. The likes of Mac Jones, these guys who have up to now have been perceived as busts. You just never know where the next reclamation project is, and that's one of the interesting things that you can look out for in the preseason.
Yeah, I'm happy to leave Mac Jones as being a reclamation project, but we'll move on from that. Kieran Boyle, it's funny, we've spoken about Micah Parsons on this podcast last week, but we haven't had your view on it, and I know obviously, unlike some of the journalists are covering it, you might have a more sort of independent view on the relationship between Micah Parsons and the Cowboys. Supposedly, Adam Schefter was coming out today saying that there's been zero contact between the Parsons and the Cowboys. There's been very little progress. Other people suggesting that, in contract talks, there's talks and then there's negotiations, and they haven't even gotten to the talks level. And Parsons is coming out, and they saw what Abdul Carter was doing, and he was very effusive in his praise on Twitter. Some people are saying, oh, is that a Penn State thing, or is that him trying to leverage possibly a move to the NFC East? This Dallas Cowboys soap opera keeps going on, and we don't know if a deal is even going to eventually be done between Parsons and the Cowboys, is going to ever be done.
Well, I'm pretty sure a deal is going to get done, but this is just classic Jerry. This is what he does. This is why he loves eyes on the Cowboys all the time. This is why he loves having tours at the Cowboys facility right before games when players are in the gym. This is what he loves. He loves the news, and he loves all the drama that goes along with it. This is a guy who had a great thing in the 90s, and we're going to see it on Netflix whenever it is, the 19th or sometime this month. His relationship with Jimmy Johnson. This is what he does. He muddies the waters. He creates chaos, and then he waits and calms down and waits to see what comes from all of it. So he's gonna poke it for another week or two, maybe even into the start of the season, and he's gonna keep Parsons kind of dangling, and that's what he does. He's gonna hold on till the end. He doesn't like agents. We know this. He doesn't like interacting with agents. He's an old school Arkansas dude from the country. A handshake deal is a handshake deal, and that's his word, and that's how he plays it. And he's going to keep playing it that way, because at this stage, Jerry is not going to change how Jerry is. So I think that at this stage, he's just going to keep Parsons dangling along. Parsons doesn't want to go anywhere. This is a decent Cowboys team. He doesn't want to end up getting a move to Cleveland or Oakland or something like that. That's still got years to go.
Oakland, he'd be doing well in Oakland if there is Vegas now.
Well, not Oakland, Vegas. I'm sorry. I'm going way back with Jerry. I'm going back to Oakland.
A quick fact on that, Kieran. 1993, Jerry Jones allowed the Cowboys to go 0-2 without Emmitt Smith. He was holding out at the time.
That's right.
And they became the first team ever to go 0-2 and win the Super Bowl.
Yeah. And it wouldn't surprise me if this drags on and on and on, because it's what Jerry does. And what people forget is that he, and again, the Jimmy Johnson story will come out on Netflix. If Jimmy Johnson had stayed at the helm, that could have been the dynasty of all dynasties. Forget Brady. Forget all the other stuff. That team was loaded for years and years and years, and then they broke it up and went their separate ways, and that kind of Cowboy dynasty just evaporated. But again, we all know Jerry loves the limelight. He loves to be the center of attention. He doesn't like agents. He likes to do everything himself and be a micromanager and all that kind of stuff. So again, I don't think Parsons is going anywhere, and I think Jerry's going to keep playing this game because that's what he loves to do. He'll just wind them up and he'll drop some more stuff in the press or in the media every day or two. He'll have an impromptu, he'll just say, I'm meeting everybody in a minute, and everybody will rush towards him and he'll say something and it'll wind Parsons up even more. So bottom line, Parsons is going back to Dallas. It's just a matter of when, and Jerry will make him sweat, and he'll end up getting, I don't know, crazy money, 40 a year, 42, something wild like that.
Yeah, I think they're throwing around the idea of a $200 million guaranteed. It is an interesting one, Brian, though, because if you think of the duel between Parsons and Jerry Jones, as Kieran was saying, Jerry Jones is old school guys. I think I heard somebody saying today that apparently like Belichick and Jones were sort of the last two who would try to talk to a player directly. You look at how Jerry Jones dealt with Dak Prescott, for example. A lot of that was him coming up in the training field and being like, come on. Whereas Michael Parsons has been steadfast. No, do not have a conversation with me unless my agent is present. And then interesting one as well. When given the opportunity ahead of the Cowboys game against the Rams, Jerry Jones seemed to be like uncharacteristically mute in terms of he was just saying, listen, he just said, glad to see he's working out, and just sort of played off a very PR type answer, which is not really a Jerry Jones thing. I don't know whether he's starting to realize that he's coming up against a match and he has to try and play differently as he normally does. But this, this is still going to keep grabbing headlines until a deal is done. And if a deal is done, it's going to be worth a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah, look, Jerry's a very astute man, and Kieran's right when he says the old school mentality of trying to conclude deals, but he also can't help himself, and it won't be long until he's back doing his weekly section. Like, he's one of the few owners that goes on every week on the local radio and talks shop. Usually it's more about the team's success or dysfunction on the Sunday. But this is going to clamour and go on, so I wonder what's going to happen when he gets to the stage of the season if he hasn't done the deal, what kind of talk. I think as well from Parsons' frustration is, as well as I believe, if you read between the lines, there was a deal concluded and agreed some time ago, and that deal you would think inevitably wouldn't happen thereafter, and that hasn't taken place. So there's a growing frustration that I thought we had a deal, and yeah, here we are. And he's seen other players around the league get paid, and he's seen other players hold out, and he feels it's right. Like, look at Hendrickson in Cincinnati, very different situation there. I acknowledge, but he hasn't got paid. He's back. He's frustrated, and these teams have a very different way of. I don't know. Like, we look at offensive players and the demand to pay them and how quickly they get paid on average compared to defensive players. I'm not saying there's a different mindset of defensive players, but Jerry has a way of doing this, and he's done it before, and he's had success until someone balks at it and actually really puts him in a position where he's no choice whether to either to release them or pay them way above the average rate. He's going to continue to keep doing it, and it was rightly called out last week. I can't recall which. Actually, it was Sam Monson on the piece with Kieran. It was a great interview in which he said he'll find ways to do it because it keeps him in the limelight, and they keep making money off all the various different social channels that continue to watch the content. Jane Slater, who we've had the opportunity to spend some time with over the course of the summer, she was back and forth, and she believes it will be done. It'll be done the week of week one prior to that game in Philadelphia, which should be a huge game. And they need that conversation gone and focusing on that game as opposed to the Michael Parsons debate and continued speculation.
Yeah, was the morning of week one when the Dak Prescott deal got done last year? I wouldn't surprise me if something like that
makes sense.
Kieran Donovan, anything else from around the league which caught your eye? I think there's some of these preseason games. I think other than the photographs that come out of Geno Smith flipping off Seahawks fans was wearing his Las Vegas Raiders gear that came out the morning after. There's a lot of teams, a lot of fans, Patriots, Packers, wherever, are looking in to their teams to try and sort of get a sense. But is there anything else that's really popped out for you from a weekend?
No, I think I pay more attention to the NFL memes than the actual the real news coverage around these couple of weeks. And the biggest thing that popped for me was the Shedeur Sanders walk-in. It was like he was fighting in the MGM in Las Vegas with the entourage. It was as if he was walking out into the Super Bowl. No, I mean, like as I said, it is all about these guys looking to step up and take their opportunity. And just to circle back again, just to, before we finish up to the kickers again, just to say, like, I mean, these three guys, I know I made the point at the start of the show, these three Irish kickers now that are representing, and I'm probably doing Dan Whelan a disservice in not mentioning him, but I know he's come through the more conventional route. I hope the whole country is behind these three guys, because it brings me back to a point that Mark McNamee made on your very, very enjoyable interview with Mark McNamee a couple of months ago that we replayed again a few weeks ago when he signed. You asked him, would you have any advice to any of these kickers in Ireland, these young lads that are thinking about having a go off this, and he just said, do it. That's the only bit of advice he said, is do it. Don't think about it, because as much as we love as we much and embrace our Irishness, we're also very aware of the begrudgery that exists in this country as well, and like there'd be an awful fear amongst a lot of young people to say I'm not going to put myself out there for fear of what other people would think. People might think I've got these notions about myself, or people might think I've got my head in my clouds. These guys, not only did they have the technical skills, but they had the dedication, the drive to go and, obviously hone the skill of what they're doing, but they had the balls to go and put themselves out there as well. And to actually put themselves in the shop window. And, I say fair play to them. And, they're representing they're representing the country now. And I mean, if it'll only take one or two of these guys to pick up a starting job for other head coaches to look up and take notice. It happened in Australian rules as well. It's
happened with Australians coming to America as well. So
absolutely,
it's the kind of thing that once if you build a pathway and build it in. So look, it'd be very interesting.
But we talk about like these guys sticking around as well, and what they need to do. What they need to do is what they did the other night when they were called on, do their job. Kick their extra points, kick their field goals, and I mean that's the bread and butter of kicking. It's when you're asked to nail a simple kick, you have to hit it, and then you can turn heads with a long one every now and again. I'm actually glad that Mark McNamee wasn't asked to kick a field goal or to kick an extra point the other day, because he was only fresh off the plane. I think in the next week or two he'll get his chance, and I really hope that these guys keep up their high percentage, because again, the fact of it is that one or two of these kickers around the league is going to go down this year, and teams don't tend to carry an active backup on the active roster. The good thing for these guys is that each one of them now is the secondary kicker on their respective team. There's nobody on the roster behind them. Now they've all got three established kickers ahead of them, but you never know what could happen in terms of I mean, look what happened with Justin Tucker last year for the Ravens. He absolutely fell off a cliff. So you just never know. So they got to keep doing their job, and we wish them all the best, because even a practice squad kicker, they're on life-changing money, guys. Like this is an opportunity for them that we could only dream of here. Charlie Smith is going into his second season. He made the cut and he survived, and you saw how happy his teammates were when he nailed a kick to win a game for the Saints in preseason last year. So he's going above, obviously, what you need to do, the basics, and he's made himself a very likable guy in the changing room. You can see that. So all these things will make coaches take notice as well.
Two quick things to mention before we finish up, I guess. Firstly, for anybody who missed it, the Lions-Falcons game got called off early. The cornerback, Maurice Norris Jr., left the field early on an ambulance, and when the Lions were up 17-0, and they decided to call off that game. But supposedly he is in concussion protocol and seems to be recovering all right. We wish all the best for him. It seemed like a scary moment in that match. And then moving on to college football, because we know that the College Football Classic is coming to Dublin very soon. Kieran Boyle is wearing his K-State shirt. Of course, as Kansas State are coming to Dublin very soon. And it's interesting as well, the AP poll came out earlier on today with both K-State and Iowa State being in the top 25. I think it's the first time we will see two top 25 teams face off in the Aer Lingus College Football Classic. I think K-State are 17 and Iowa State are 22. But I guess the one interesting thing, and I'm interested you're taking this, Kieran Boyle, is the fact that Texas are coming to this as number one, and it's all going to be Arch Manning watch. And Archie Manning, the grandpappy, who's basically saying, oh, no, he's going to be at Texas in 2026. He ain't going to be up in the draft next year. He's in the college with the long haul. And I don't know how much we should really read into that. But I think they play against Ohio State on the Saturday after the game in Dublin. That's going to be a pretty good game to kick off the season in America.
Yeah, I think Texas is only there just because of Arch. The hype is crazy for him. Plus a lot of the great talent in college left to go to the NFL this year. So I don't want to say it's a down year, but it'll find its form. You know, I think Miami was ranked 10, Florida's 15, Notre Dame, Clemson, Ohio State, they're all up there. But the great thing about college football is more players or more teams are going to make the playoffs now. So we remember last year Scatabo against Texas. We remember the Notre Dame game in against Penn State. So there's a lot of cool games coming up. You know, I love college football almost as much, if not more, than the NFL. So it's going to be my time to shine.
You can't have anything more than the NFL. That's banned. You know, as much as we love college football, the NFL is
we
always.
can go about NASCAR. We can talk about MLB. But anyway, we'll keep it to NFL.
Crocodiles and snakes and
That's it. Spiders inside of your hands.
I love the wildlife you come across your walks in Florida. Very different than, you know, the odd spider you might see in a field of Kildare. I think that's us for our Monday news round. We will be back later on in the week with previews of the AFC and NFC South. But for now, thank you very much for listening to the Irish NFL Show.